Geez, dude, you need to change your blinker fluid.
That's not a thing.
And your thoracic couplet is totally shot.
Really?
It is.
Look, nothing gets by me. Just like this oil filter. Nothing gets by Purolator.
Hey, if you're using Purolator Boss, you know your stuff.
Oh yeah, protection up to 15,000 miles.
Ooh, but you really should replace your Vesuvius valve.
Stop talking.
Purolator oil, air, and cabin air filters. Nothing gets by us. Available at Advance Auto Parts, Pep Boys, and other fine retailers.
Blog Talk Radio.
Live from Fort Bragg's backyard, this is the show that put the 110 Nation on the map. There is only one nation, the 110 Nation, and you're listening to the 110 Nation Sports Show, covering each and every sport across the board. There is no sport too large or too little. It's time to talk the talk. Here we go. Here's the man, the founder, and your host, Mr. CJ Sports.
I want to welcome everybody to the 110 Nation Sports Show. I am your host, Mr. CJ Sports. You can follow me at CJ Sports 1. You can follow the 110 Nation at 110 Nation. Check us out on Facebook, my personal fan page, Mr. CJ Sports, the 110 Nation fan page, 110 Nation Sports. Also, check out our site, www.the110nationsports.com, for all the latest going on here at the 110 Nation. Thank God it's Monday. Tell you what, it was a long, eventful weekend. I do apologize for the delay. One, we carried over a little bit over Rubbin is Racing. And then also I had to inform Shorty how to go stick my pumps because I got to go back to work after I get done and do some stuff. We got an inspection tomorrow. But with the fuel shortage going on down here in North Carolina, we got to make sure that we don't dip below a certain point, as we're already out of 87 and 89 grade. Well, I'm not going to say out, but to a level that we cannot allow any more to come out of our tanks. We can't go below 700 gallons. If it goes below 700 gallons, then it burns up the motor from the motor that pumps the fuel from the tanks to the pumps, and it's been nonstop, come to find out. So she's headed up there right now to go stick my pumps real quick, or stick the premium pump anyways. That's all I had left available. As it is a madhouse at every gas station here in North Carolina. Fortunately, for Mr. TJ Sports, I've made sure that Shorty is topped off at every given opportunity over the last 2 days, and the fact that we went ahead and filled up about 12 gallons worth of gas cans that we had laying around. And the other fortunate part is the fact that I do run a gas station. We're not allowed to dip below that 700. Does not mean that I let it get close enough to that 700. If this drags out for a week or two, I will make sure that I have gas. If I got to, I probably have about 100 gallons of unleaded in reserve for my staff and myself, to make sure that I have a staff that can get back and forth to work, and probably about the same in mid-grade, just to make sure that we had enough to make sure that we're able to take care of it. We got to take care of it. It's one of the perks of being in charge. So, nonetheless, everybody else might be scrambling around in North Carolina. I won't have to worry about that issue. But it may become an issue this weekend, as the 110 Nation, more specifically Shorty and myself, we're supposed to go to Kentucky this weekend for race coverage. And I know that I spoke to my mother, who lives in Ohio, and I know they don't have an issue with the gas thing going on. But I do know that Kentucky and Tennessee and the whole route in between here, in the race at least, they do have an issue with gas. So it's one of those things that we might be topping off early in the morning, and hopefully that makes it all the way to the race, and therefore all the way to Ohio and we can fill up and so forth and so forth. I don't know. We got 4 days to decide how this is all going to play out and whether or not we're going to be able to make this trip to Kentucky now that we're having a fuel shortage issue that's running up and down the East Coast. So we'll wait to see how that plays out. Had an interesting weekend. I got the opportunity Friday to go out to the Z-Max Dragway. Had an opportunity to watch NHRA finest as they count down to their champion. Kind of heartbroken. Didn't get an opportunity to sit in there because Ender's car. Didn't get an opportunity to speak with her. I was in talks with her PR as well as a couple other drivers out there, to include Hector that we had on last week. They just had things going on, and he was supposed to get back up with me. He never did. They're countdown to a champion. This is their playoff. I didn't want to interfere. If they had time, they had time. If they didn't, they didn't. It's not one of those things that, I am upset to the point that, I would never have him back on the show or never, try it again. I was just heartbroken because I wanted to sit in that car, and I did have a chance to go over there and hang out a little bit and watch her work on the car and everything else. And we put pictures on the 110 Nation Sports page to check that out, amongst all the other stuff I got to see. I did have fun, though. I was out there for, about 6 hours on Friday, hanging out and looking at all the cars and watching them do their runs. And I tell you what, those funny cars when they were when they were out there running, I tell you what, it was crazy. It was loud. Not that the rest of the cars weren't loud, but when you had those funny cars, like it felt like your whole inside was ready to explode outside. There's just something about that horsepower and that noise and everything else. It was insane. Was right there next to Bobby Labonte. As a matter of fact, I heard a lot of his conversation, just where I happened to be standing and where Bobby Labonte happened to be standing. So it was cool to see NASCAR drivers out there appreciating what the NHRA drivers do. But like I said, it was cool. Got to see a bunch of different drivers, got to see a bunch of different cool cars and everything else. Had a blast. Can't wait to go back to another event. Saturday, had the opportunity. My relief came in late. So actually, the person I was supposed to be training, he called out sick. So then I had to call somebody in, and it got to the point that if I would have went Saturday, as my credentials were from like 7:30 to 4, if I would have ended up going at the point when I finally had relief and I actually could leave, I wouldn't have got there until about 1-ish, and I saw no point in driving 2 hours to be there only 3 hours. I turned around and drive back 2 hours. So what we decided to do instead was take a trip down to South Carolina. We've had Kayla Lyons on the show many times, and she happened to be driving, racing at the She happened to be racing at the Florence Motor Speedway in South Carolina. It was about a 2-hour hop, skip, and a jump away. So we decided we would make a trip out of it, head down there, did a little sightseeing on the way down, got an opportunity to show some support for Kayla Lyons, since she has been so supportive here at the 110 Nation. Got to meet her dad for the first time. We've messaged back and forth and we've talked, but we've never actually met face-to-face, and so we got that opportunity Saturday night. Made it for a long night because I got up at 4:30 on Friday morning, did all that cool stuff, produced the show Friday night, everything. Got to bed probably about midnight on Friday night. Then got up Saturday morning at 4:30, put my work in, and headed down to South Carolina. And unfortunately, there was a rain delay, and unfortunately, there was a real bad wreck. They tried to go 3 wide, and it was wide enough to go 3 wide, but they didn't play nice. One of the cars ended up in the catch bench. It was a pretty bad wreck. I didn't get to see it all. I did get to see the ending result of the car. And if you've not seen that, go over to the 110 Nation Sports page. The driver, I didn't know what did walk. Well, I'm not going to say walk away. He was on the stretcher. At least 1, if not 2, broken legs. It was a pretty bad wreck. Had the race red flag for a while. So unfortunately, with the rain delay, which was quite a long rain delay, and the seriousness of that wreck, we didn't get back until about 3:45 in the morning, Sunday morning, which I then had to turn around and be back up at 4:30. Yes, I did take a 45-minute nap. Go in at 4:30 and work for 5 hours. I think till 9 o'clock, 9:30. And well, actually, I didn't leave till 10 o'clock. So, needless to say, yesterday it was one of those days I was in and out. Had the red zone on, caught this, that, and the other of the football action. Had to watch Race America, NASCAR 120, and Race Hub today to catch up on the NASCAR event. So, long weekend, a fun weekend, a weekend that I definitely get used to doing every weekend, regardless of losing sleep. Well, I'm not going to say I get used to it in every weekend. I would like to do the traveling and going to the sporting events every weekend. I could do away with the real job. So for those out there looking to form marketing partnerships for companies that are growing, I got to applaud everybody first before we get before we get Mike on the show as well. Numbers, good God Almighty. The website continuing growing. I got to thank Shannon and Mike. And Izzo for their articles. I got to thank all these teams and PRs for all the press releases and everything that they send our way, and all the readers and all the loyal faithfuls that are part of the 110 Nation that go over and check out our site, growing. Got to thank y'all. And likewise with the shows, the numbers, we've gone back into the right direction once again. I enjoy being able to open up, looking at the stats, and look at us grow every single day. So I got to thank you guys out there listening. I got to thank all the great guests. I am looking forward to it. I hope to God we get to go to Kentucky this weekend. That was one of the things I was looking for, was the opportunity to be able to thank each and every one of the drivers in the Orchid Series and Xfinity Series that have come on the show, and or their PRs and or their team owners, all depending on which teams and the situation. I'm so looking forward to that opportunity because they help make this show and this company be what they are. And then most important, well, I might say most importantly, because the most important person is going to be the person I recognized last year. I got to make sure that I thank I-95 Sports Network and the Mile High Radio Network for syndicating our shows. They have helped us grow tremendously up and down the East Coast, and now out in the Midwest or the Mountain Regional area. I guess I think we agreed that was what the region was called out there in Colorado with the Mile High Radio Network. Got to thank them. I got to thank all of our hosts, our co-hosts, our experts, if it be Izzo, Mike, Steve, Chris, Shannon. I might be missing somebody else. And then I also, most importantly, got to thank my right-hand person, Miss Lee, for everything she does to help make this grow. If it be the site side and what she does there, or the radio side and coordinating all these interviews and having these relations with all these people, well, without her, things wouldn't be possible at all. So I definitely got to thank her. There was someone else. Working on another possible partnership, so we're waiting on that, waiting to get the confirmation on that, and hopefully that all pans out. And, of course, I got to thank Shorty financially and I'm not going to say emotionally, but she's very supportive of what we do here. As you know, she took a lot of photographs while we was out at the Florida Motor Speedway. When we go to Kentucky, if we get to go to Kentucky, she'll be the one taking all the pictures and running around like a chicken with her head cut off. She is something else when we get up those tracks. She was the same way when we was at the Battle of Bristol with Tennessee and Virginia Tech. And the whole time we was there, I might have seen her 20, 30 minutes. Once the game started, she was gone. taking pictures and really trying to make sure that the 110 Nation is getting done things that need to be getting done. So got to be thankful for all those. But yes, I could enjoy. I could see myself every weekend being gone. You know, and that's obviously the ultimate goal here at the 110 Nation. Not just myself, but you know, and I'll probably be the last one that would step away from actually working. I would like to have the opportunity to have a few other people be able to walk away from their jobs first and this be their full-time job before I did. But, you know, ultimately that's what we're all working here for, is this be our job. This, you know, what we passionately love to do, write sports, talk sports, travel. And so if you're out there and you're interested in join the 110 Nation, all you got to do is hit me up, mrcjsports@gmail.com. If you're someone's marketing guy or woman and you're looking to partner up with somebody in the marketing and you know, help and looking to advertise, hit me up, mrcjsports@gmail.com. I promise you, we got a plan for everybody. And you know, we do a lot of things like the snafu seasoning. We trade off. We advertise. You know, we promote them, and they give us free product. And so, I mean, it's something that simple, or you know, it could be an actual, you know, advertising spot or whatever the case may be. That all you do is hit me up, mrcjsports@gmail.com. All right, before we jump into talking sports, which is what we come to do, let me get Mike on here and let him let you know what's going on Friday night, where he can be found on social media, and we'll jump into this. Mike, how you doing tonight?
How you doing, CJ? Okay, Dan, we got the championship championships decided in all the divisions. So I will be working on getting a couple of champions from the different tracks, hopefully. I have reached out to a few people from Riverhead already, and I will try and see who I can get from Wall and some of the Connecticut tracks as well, because the regular season is over with. One other week coming up on Riverhead. I don't know how many. For Wall, I do know that their season goes up until the Turkey Derby, which is around the same time as NASCAR Sprint Cup, because that's around Thanksgiving time, hence the name of the race. So they go up until, you know, October and November, and I think some of the Connecticut tracks do as well. But there's at least one more week of action where the drivers can just have fun, no points. The championships, as I said, have been decided. We'll talk about that on Friday night, and hopefully get a member of the support staff to go along on the second hour as well. A couple of people I have in mind. It's been Monday, and I reached out to some people waiting for some responses. A lot of these people, I mentioned it on Friday on my show, will be coming on in the off season when they're more available, because their competition will be completed, and will be going all throughout the off season, talking to drivers about what they're doing with their cars, when they're moving up, whatever they're doing with the season, looking towards 2017 as well. As far as my social media, you can get me on my personal Facebook page, the 110 sports pages, where I post articles and also write articles on the blog site. I will be posting or writing 2 Riverhead blogs this week. Hope to get the first one up tonight, maybe tomorrow morning, and be covering the championships for the year and the winners from just Saturday night. So you can read those 2, And also this coming week coming up, which will be up by Sunday night this coming week, will be the final golf tournament of the year. And there are two more in November and December. The one in November that's interesting is in California, but what makes that interesting is Tiger Woods come back. Will be in that tournament in Napa, California, and then they go on a Christmas break or holiday break, and then come back, I believe, in January out in Pebble Beach. So keep an eye on that. I'll be writing regularly next season on golf every week. I am now patched into the PGA Tour site, so I will know more than I even knew before, and I'll be updating the fans on golf as well as NASCAR. But as far as Friday night again, the championships, some of the drivers hopefully on, and then a support staff member as well. Again, one other thing before we get into other sports, October the 7th, CJ and Shorty will be on the road again, and so on that particular Friday, we will not be able to produce the show and from the studio, so we will have a rebroadcast. So drop by the Hot Laps with Stats fan page and take a look at the archive that I posted every week from the beginning. And if you have a personal favorite, just put it in the comments section for me. And if we get a consensus, that will be the show that we rebroadcast on October the 7th. If not, I'm going to take 3 of my favorites, throw them in a hat or a bucket or whatever I happen to have handy. Pick one out, and that will be the one that I'll share it, obviously, with CJ, and we will run that rebroadcast of that episode of Hot Laps with Stacks. But again, very interesting show again on Friday night. I'm hoping that the support staff comes through as well, and we're going to have an interesting show again on Friday night, CJ.
Oh, goodness. I just did the tallying up. As you guys know, listening to the Fun 10 Nation Sports Show, Mike, myself, and Shorty all are competing for the best record here. And so far, this week, Mike and myself are having a pretty decent week. Not the greatest, 11-4. There was a couple games I'm not going to say I wish I could take back. I just didn't see it playing out that way, like Tennessee winning against Detroit, Minnesota being victorious over Green Bay.
The
Los Angeles
winning was the one that surprised me, and Los Angeles. Yes, those two.
Los Angeles over Seattle. I think those 3 games. The other one that I lost, because I went 11-4 this week. The other one, yeah, I'll take that. I guess it could have probably went either way, and I'm trying to remember which game it was.
Houston?
No, the Oakland game. I knew that could have gone either way. I just really honestly thought Oakland would win it. But, yeah, Tennessee over Detroit, especially being in Detroit. Green Bay against Minnesota. And, like I said, the Los Angeles game, I just really didn't see those coming. Now, I can say that I do a football pool, and my 11-4 record says that if Chicago wins and the combined score is 42 or more, I'm in the house. I am taking the money this week. So let's hope for a Chicago victory tonight, as Shorty was the only one not to pick Chicago tonight, and let's hope that it's by 42 or more points. Let's hope it's a high-scoring game, total combined score, and I'm in the house. But Mike and myself both went 11-4 this week, so Mike moves up in the ladder moves up a little bit, and I stay par, and Shorty Shorty is falling quickly to the rear side. As of right now, the way we're sitting, Mike is sitting with a 17-14 record. I am sitting with a 20-11 record, and Shorty is now sitting with an 18-13 record. So things are starting to tighten up a little bit there. At the bottom, I try to do my best to go ahead and pull away and get out front and get over while I can, or get ahead while I can, so I can coast the rest of the way.
Yes. Well, I knew I would have a better week. Couldn't get much worse than week one, but anyway. Yeah. I'm glad I broke 500 anyway. But you know, that there were three games that surprised me. Houston winning, although they're strong. LA winning, obviously, and Seattle losing. I didn't know they, you know, I have to reassess Seattle. I thought they were stronger than, you know, it was a close game, but I just expected them to come out on top in that matchup. Another interesting thing, although one other thing that interested me this week and going into this week, CJ, and again, knowing what I know about Belichick, I hesitate to pick against him, but he's already a third string quarterback, but I think he could sign. I won't go as far to say me because the NFL doesn't allow, you know, wheelchair people on the field, but I could probably quarterback New England and they win. But I'll say probably you, with a little bit of, you know, you being a little bit more athletic, he could probably plug you in and win a game this week. So we'll see what happens. But I never heard of the third string guy that they have, but we'll see what happens.
Like that, things have gotten a little bit tighter in the race, with you and Shorty just being one game apart. You know, it's a tale of two totally different stories. You got the New England Patriots that have, you know, Tom Brady out suspension. Their second-string quarterback gets hurt in the second half. They're more than likely Thursday night going to go with their third-string quarterback. They're sitting 2-0. Excuse me. Now, the opposite end of the totem pole, you got RG3 of the Cleveland Browns gets hurt in week one. The Browns managed to blow a 20-0 lead to the Baltimore Ravens. Josh McCown gets hurt in week two. Rookie Cody Kessler is forced to start week three, and the Browns are 0-2. That tells you the tale of two different stories. You got two teams on the third-string quarterback. One team that's looking like they're going to make the playoffs and be fine because they're going to get Tom Brady back here in 2 weeks, and Cleveland Browns just swirling out of control. And that 0-16 prediction everybody's talking about might come true.
Yep. And it's interesting to me, again, the Bill Belichick connection. A few years ago when Cleveland was Cleveland before Baltimore came into the picture, if they would have kept Bill Belichick, you never know what could have happened, you know. But that's just, you know, again, I know you're a Browns fan, but it strikes me, you know, and just what you said in view of the two teams you just mentioned. There are some teams that make decisions that no matter what they do, things come out like roses. And then there's other teams that just no matter what they do, they can't get it their own way. And it's just amazing to me. It really is. It's just the way things play out. And it's not a matter of ownership because, you know, you had Art Modell there or whoever was with Cleveland before, different people, and it doesn't matter. You know, they put personnel in, they put coaches in, and the same thing happens. On the other hand, you have teams like New England where you say, okay, they're at their third string quarterback. How the hell could they do anything? And they're going to be, I don't want to say because I've never heard of this guy, but the fact of the matter is that, they're going to have to show me something that they can't compete before I will almost pick against them. And no matter who it is, as long as you have Belichick preparing you or someone like him, there's going to be teams that are going to be okay and that can fight through any injury or any, any stupid thing that happens to them. And yet there are other teams that just can't do that. And that goes back to the culture of the team, I think. Although you say there's different players down through the ages, or down through the years, even seasons. It's not even eras. You look at, the Bernie Kosar teams and so on, and what they went through, in the playoffs and everything. And there's definitely different guys there now, but it's just, I don't know what it is. It's just, it's interesting to me why that happens. When you have turnover, but even with the turnover, you have the same results. And it's just amazing to me.
Oh, the life of being a Cleveland Browns fan is just, I don't know.
Well, it goes both ways. Positive, that's my point. Positive and negative. I mean, normally, who ever heard of Jimmy whatever his name is, Garofalo, before he stepped in for Brady, and even when Brady with Bledsoe, okay, when everybody said, now Brady was a little bit more well known from college because he played at Michigan, okay, but still, I remember when he was made the starter, I think, by Belichick or one of the coaches at that time. And they said, well, who's Tom Brady? And he ends up not only subbing for Drew Bledsoe at that time, but winning the starting job. So that's what I mean. It's just, it goes both ways, positively and negatively. And it's amazing.
I think the couple things to point out this week that has really caught my eye. One, let's talk about the Denver Broncos defense. Here we are 2 weeks into the season. Offensively, maybe not the best team out there, but defensively, with 2 scores, is a fumble recovery that I forget who caused it. I want to say it was Von Miller, but it might not have been. And then we believe, how you pronounce his name, had the pick 6. But this Denver defense, once again, having another impressive outing. Indianapolis Colts, a team that, could score a lot of points on you. Andrew Luck gets in his rhythm, put up a lot of points. A team that could be explosive, only able to score 20 points. This Denver Broncos defense. I'm a firm believer that offense can win you games, but defenses can win you championships. And that offense wasn't the greatest of offense behind Peyton Manning last year, won a championship. Here we are 2 games into the season, and I still don't think that Denver is getting the talk that they probably should be getting because of the fact that they still have a really no-name quarterback at that quarterback position. But I think that people need to stop sleeping on this Denver Bronco team because that defense, what they did in Week 1 against the Carolina Panthers and shutting them down once again, and then what they've been able to do in Week 2 is, to me, impressive. Trevor Siemian, however you pronounce his name, of the Denver Broncos, he had a decent day, 22-33, 67%, 266 yards. Just no interceptions in the picks. Obviously he's no Peyton Manning and really not even a Brock Osweiler, but when your defense is doing the things that they are doing, and this is kind of like I said, kind of the same rhythm that we saw last year, that Denver defense, picking up the slack, and when Peyton Manning was having his down for the season and Brock Osweiler was still getting comfortable, It's like that defense ain't skipped a beat, and that's something that's very impressive to me is what this Denver defense is doing so far this year.
Right. Well, that's what I had mentioned last week when we were doing the picks. I said that Denver's defense is the type that there are teams that can live on their defense with their defense while their quarterback is getting comfortable. And when you have a Peyton Manning, you have a chance offensively, and that makes it all the more threatening. I said even if this kid wasn't comfortable yet with the whole playbook or the whole offense, that defense is going to give him time and still make the team competitive. And I think I mentioned two teams in that vein. The other one was Baltimore, the difference being that they have Flacco. And so that's a team that has, historically too, if you go back to Ray Lewis and that group, lived off their defense a lot. And so that's interesting, but especially with a young quarterback, if you have a defense that can hold you in games and make you competitive, it's gonna be a big difference, and you're seeing it, like you said, with Denver.
Mm-hmm. Other things that impressed me, I tell you what, Minnesota able to win with without their original starting quarterback, without Teddy Bridgewater. Not that I felt that Teddy Bridgewater is that great of a quarterback. Just having to make the transition, having to go to Sean Keane in week 1 at the last second, and then now going to Sam Bradford in week 2. Very impressed what they very impressed of what they've been able to do and what they've been able to overcome.
Right. No, that one is impressive to me because of Bradford. I'm not waffling on it. I said I wasn't impressed with Bradford as a quarterback, and yet he got the job done and the team got the job done. And I think, and it's probably a combination too of good preparation of the team by the coaches in this case, because of plugging different people in, similar to Belichick, although Zimmer hasn't done it as long, obviously. But in this particular case with Bradford, again, when you have a quarterback that historically has not been impressive, I mean, he got hurt in St. Louis. He got hurt in Philadelphia more than he was on the field, which gave Mark Sanchez a chance in Philadelphia. God help him. But, so he is not a terribly impressive quarterback, and yet they get the job done. So, for this week at least, kudos, because I didn't expect them to, and I think you picked Green Bay as well, I didn't expect them to beat Minnesota, even in Minnesota with or rather, I expected Green Bay to beat Minnesota, even in Minnesota, with Sam Bradford as the quarterback.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting. It didn't matter who. It really didn't matter who was the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings. I just didn't expect Green Bay to lose this week to the Minnesota Vikings. Arizona was the team that we kind of expected all along, and they showed up and put on a hell of a performance against Tampa Bay. Let us see exactly what I knew all along about Jameson Winston, really not that good of a quarterback, as Arizona had their way with them. Was definitely impressed with Carson Palmer and what the Arizona Cardinals did this weekend. Carolina, as I got the text message before, and earlier in the week and the text message that morning, what I thought, the chances of the 49ers beating the Carolina Panthers from a friend of mine. Like I said when I was when I made my picks, I felt that Carolina played a very good defense, and the 49ers had played the LA Rams. I know it doesn't mean a lot after this week, after watching the Rams hold the Seattle Seahawks to, 3 points? But I still feel that way. That was kind of why the 49ers were 1-0 and the Panthers were 0-1. We got exactly what we expected in week 2 with the beat down that the Carolina Panthers put on the 49ers. Not a big surprise there. I'm loving the rivalry that's building up between the Steelers and the Bengals. I'm not a fan of either one, obviously being a Browns fan, but it's always impressive watching the rivalry and this build up, and I hope this is something that continues to build. It makes things great. I think there's really 2 big rivalries when it comes to the AFC North. And I know it used to be a Browns-Steelers thing when the Browns used to be relevant, and I know that there for a while they built up the Baltimore and the Browns because of the Browns moving to Baltimore. But honestly, I think the 2 biggest rivalries in that AFC North right now, well, I'm not going to say 2 because there's the third one. There's the Ravens and Steelers. That gets to be rather nasty at times. But that Cincinnati Steelers rivalry is really getting to be good in the AFC North. Then, of course, the Battle of Ohio is always interesting. No matter how bad either one of the teams happen to be, those games always happen to be good games between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns.
Right. I grew up with a similar thing with the Jets and the Giants. So, yeah, when it's regional like that, there are situations like you said, the Battle of Ohio. I don't think my recollection is they don't call the Jets and the Giants Battle of New York, basically because they're both playing in New Jersey. But it's the same type of deal. And like you say, no matter, even if the Jets were in one of their years when they were 2-11 or something, 2-12, whatever it is, they always, showed up for that game as well.
Any of the games that stuck out to me that I wanted to talk. Was there anything else this weekend that stuck out to you?
I think you hit on one. I mean, considering they're not far removed from their Super Bowl, was Seattle. I'm surprised they only put up 3 points. I don't know what happened. I mean, the game wasn't on locally, even here. But for the quarterback there to Russell Wilson to only for the team to put up only 3 points against LA, either LA played like they used to play with Deacon Jones was on the team, or I don't know what happened there. Obviously, one team being LA played over their head, I believe, had to, and we'll see what happens down the road. But that was a major surprise to me of all the wins and the losses. The other wins, the other losses were close and could be 1 point, whatever, 2 points. I guess not totally surprising, but the fact that Seattle only put up 3 points, I guess, was the major surprise to me, considering they played LA.
Not only the fact that the Seattle Seahawks only put up 3 points this week, but they've only put up 15 points total in the first 2 weeks. That's crazy to me.
Right. Well, obviously something's happening with their offense, and Pete Carroll's got to go back to the drawing board, I guess. Another Jet and New England coach from the past, So that'll be interesting. I'll be, keeping an eye on that as much as I can be here on the east, in the north, the southeast right now. I'll be back in the northeast hopefully soon, but in the East Coast anyway. You don't get a chance to really look at Seattle that often, but I'll be trying to look at that and see what's happening because, like you say, that their point output should be okay. Maybe they shouldn't be 2-0, but they shouldn't have scored just 15 points either.
Oh, goodness. Let's think who we got to think real quick, but let's jump in. Let's switch categories here, and let's talk a little NASCAR. Got to make sure that I thank Fit for Life. You guys check them out on Facebook, Fit for Life. You can also go to our site, www.the110nationsports.com. Right-hand side, we got a banner. Yes, we got a banner. We got a banner on the right-hand side. All you got to do is click that, and it lets you find the nearest location to you. 24/7, 365. Get your gym on. Great price. Great staff, courtesy staff, clean facility, all the equipment that you possibly could need. Make sure you guys check them out. That's Fit for Life. Also got to thank Snafu Seasoning, the official sponsor of Racing with Big Sweat, Thursday night, 9 p.m. So make sure you guys check that out and call and participate. Be part of the show. Big Sweat will hook you up with a bottle of Snafu Seasoning. Also got to thank I-95 Sports Network and Mile High Radio Network as well for rebroadcasting or syndicating our shows, however you want to say. Without these guys, we will not continue to grow in the way, in the manner that we are growing. So I got to be thankful and let them know how much we appreciate being part of their network. Make sure you guys check us out on Facebook, 110 Nation Sports. Check us out on Twitter at 110 Nation. That way you guys can keep up with everything going on here at the 110 Nation. Race 1 of the Chase is in the books. Interesting race. Interesting result. Went into overtime. And we're seeing possible penalties, and we kind of talked a little bit about this on Rubbing Is Racing. If you guys missed it, you guys check that out Monday night at 7 p.m. Mike, what you think about the race this weekend?
Two things, as we mentioned before, for those that did not get a chance to tune in. One, the talk early in the week, last week, was who's going to get knocked out in the first round. And a couple of people, at least surprising to me, said Chase Elliott, and that did not turn out to be the case, at least in the first race. After the first race, he had an excellent race. On the other end, like I said, surprising to me was Kevin Harvick falling as he did. Now, there's also the caveat with that maybe, and I heard you mention this on Steve. This was mentioned on Steve's program, I think, or the prior week when you guys were talking about on Rubbing with Racing about Harvick and his crew. I know Steve was mentioning that, and how would it affect them, and possibly the unrest, shall we say, between Harvick and his crew might have played at least somewhat of a role, because he is usually competitive, and was up near the front, as I recall, most of the race, and then just fell off, badly. So I don't know if there was one specific pit stop that stopped them from being competitive, or I know there was an issue this I'm sure of because his name was mentioned by the Furniture Row president, as I brought up prior, on a press release or a story that I saw on NASCAR.com. He blamed Harvick for hitting Truex at the end or near the end of the race and knocking their body out of whack, which led to their laser penalty. So he was Harvick was more in the news for what happened during the race than for where he finished in terms of finishing strong. And so that was a surprise. And again, not a surprise, as we stated before, was Chris Buechler being really in a terrible spot right now, which I didn't expect him to advance. And the other person that I couldn't think of when we were on Rubbing is Racing is Dillon, Austin Dillon. That's the fourth guy that I couldn't remember the name, and I don't see him advancing either. So two that I see not getting past the first round are Austin Dillon and Chris Buechler, with the other two, I guess, up in the air at this point, depending on what happens in the next two races. But it's interesting to me when you mentioned Mile High Radio. They must be talking NASCAR a lot on their programs this week, you would think, with the Truex Furniture Row showing this week. I could see that being the topic on their shows a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Truex. So,
I have assured it's probably a hot topic on the Mile High Radio. Interesting race, as it looked like Chase was going to run away with this one. It looked like he had this one in the bag. Martin Truex was not able to close the gap. As a matter of fact, at certain points towards the end, Chase was opening that lead back up, and then Michael McDowell had the tire go out, caused debris to be all over the track. Kind of changed the tone. I mean, ultimately came down to whose pit crew was better, and the Truex team, their pit stop was faster. They didn't have no complications. Truex got the spot over Chase Elliott, and the spot that really needed to be, as Martin Truex got to line up on the outside behind the cars that did not stop and was able to drive up around them. Chase Elliott had to work a little bit harder to get through, and it was mainly the difference.
And we touched on this somewhat, CJ, when we were talking about during Rubbing is Racing about the non-Chase drivers obviously being in the field, and something that I didn't bring up at that time. It's a shame when a non-Chase driver can affect the difference of a race negatively, like McDowell did. Now, I'm not saying he did anything purposely, but the idea that he's the one that left the debris on the track, and then, the result being later what it was, you could say that that someone that was out of the running really, affected the race result in a negative way, and you really hate to see that, because while there are 40, some odd drivers, no one goes home in each race. You'd like to think that in this case the first 16 would, if Kyle Larson dropped debris, it probably wouldn't be as much of an issue. But now you wonder how many people are going to say, see, why, we shouldn't shouldn't have happened because Michael McDowell was involved, and there's going to be people that make an issue about that. And I'm not necessarily saying, again, an issue, but I can see this coming out in the media somewhat if it happened too often in the chases now. We've only been at the first race. If more of the non-chase drivers cause anything like this, a wreck or whatever, rather than saying, okay, I'm not in the chase, let me stay away from, it's a fine line. You want to be competitive and win a race, but you don't want to, purposely cause a chase driver to, be a negative to a chase driver, like if you're racing next to him, or, I can see that being an issue if it happens too often in this chase. And it as I recall, it's happened a few times where it's been brought up in the media in the past since the chase started. And again, not that the chase is a negative thing overall, but that's one of the things that people are constantly bringing up when things like that happen. And I don't know what the answer is. Again, I've heard drivers who are sportsman-like more than others say that they're uncomfortable with the idea of causing, a negative result to a chase driver. And then I've also, the ones that don't care probably don't verbalize it. I think that's the difference. Is you don't hear them say, well, who cares? We're in the race too. You don't hear them verbalize it, but I'm sure there are drivers that say, look, we're entitled to, to race as much as anybody and so on, and, but they're the ones that don't come out in the media and say anything about it. And I think it's a shame that happened at that time. But again, it's just like they say, that's racing. You can drop, any car could drop debris, and as long as it's not something like, somebody throwing something out the window or something. That I'm not sure if that was. I don't think it was even before the race, before the chase. But I remember years ago somebody threw out a water bottle or something on purpose, and that's obviously an issue. Yeah, but not something like that. I'm talking something like off the car itself. But yeah, when I saw that, I said, "Uh-oh, there might be something that comes of this." Not so much from NASCAR in terms of penalties, but in terms of people saying in the media, well, what was Michael McDowell doing, up there at that time and whatever, and dropping debris. But that's not something he did, in my view, purposely.
Interesting weekend. As we kind of set the stage for after the first race, we kind of set the stage on how the chase is looking. Of course, Martin Truex Jr. and Jimmy Johnson did not pass the laser test after the race, which has caused and stirred up a lot of controversy and a lot of discussion. We know that NASCAR is going to have to make a clear black and white, no if, ands, or buts statement between now and Homestead to ensure that if you win and you're caught cheating, that you are not going to be rewarded with a championship or the victory. When we kind of talked about this in Rubbing His Race, we kind of talked about it last week. Wednesday night we had Shannon on the show that, I think we were all in agreement that if you get caught cheating and you don't pass the post-race inspection, that you shouldn't be awarded the win and you shouldn't have an automatic bid into the next round. Obviously, NASCAR feels otherwise and is not going to. And we even talked about this in the last show on Rubbing His Racing, which I agreed with, not only, should you not get the win, but or at least not get credit or get a bye until the next round, as Truex right now is looking at for winning the race, but also having some kind of consequences as maybe having to start at the rear of the field in the next race. So not only are you not guaranteed to be into the next round, but you're going to have to work extra hard in the next race in order to possibly get yourself into the next round.
Right, exactly. And I said, drop them 5 spots or 6 spots, and I like your solution better, which is drop them all the way to the end of the last car of the field, which, again, as I thought about it after you said it, is exactly what happens in a weekly race. And again, I'll go back to what I'm knowledgeable about. When a modified driver or a weekly driver at Riverhead causes a wreck, either going into somebody or spins out, causing somebody else that's coming along to do the same, they are sent to the rear of the field. And so at that point, they are not, sent to the pits, but they're sent to the rear of the field. So what you said, again, follows the rules as I know them at a weekly track as well. At least in my view, maybe different weekly tracks do different things. But I'm, from my experience of over 10 years, that's what they do on the Northeast anyway, modifieds. That is what happens. The driver is sent to the rear of the field, and obviously, if they feel that it's unjust, then they sit there and they talk to the official for a while before they do it. They don't always go to the rear, themselves. But then I've also seen one of the drivers from Riverhead who, really, when it happens, he just goes to the rear. He doesn't. He takes it upon himself, and he does it. But that is the rule, at least on that I'm aware of, that when you cause something to happen like that, then you go to the rear. And so what you were saying in terms of what they should do to Truex, made more sense than what I even said, which was dropping them 5 spots. And you saying they should be sent to the rear of the field is exactly what happens at a weekly track. So I can see that as again, what I was making the issue about, or saying the issue was having a competitive disadvantage. And the only thing we differentiated, or I did, was when Shannon last week even mentioned there are monetary penalties. I said, yeah, but what's the difference to a millionaire and to the drivers? They don't suffer. Not suffer, but they don't suffer any consequences. And this, of course, would be a consequence to them, in that they have to fight their way up through the field to get up to where they basically started, which I've made the point in the 7 to 8 hour there with Rubbing is Racing, that if Martin Truex says they go into New Hampshire now, he fails tech, which is basically what it is. Then he should, and he wins the pole, he shouldn't be allowed to start on the pole in New Hampshire. He should start at the rear, because even though he won the pole, he violated the prior week, and should not be awarded with the pole, even though he wins the pole in a qualifying setup, in a qualifying situation. So again, that backs up what you said as making a lot of sense to as far as the penalty dealt out in that instance.
I just saw this on Facebook. I'm not sure how true this is, but the NYC bombing suspect has been caught in New Jersey after a shootout with local and federal authorities.
Great. He added to his problem by shooting out with the police. Very good. Or with, like you say, the authorities. I guess bombing was not enough.
Jimmy Johnson leads 118 laps this weekend to be unvictorious. I don't know. It was an interesting race, but I think as we've seen the top so many finishers be chase contenders, I think we kind of got out of it what we kind of expected, other than it would have probably been Chase Elliott's race if not for Michael McDowell's tire letting out with a few laps left in the race.
Right. And again, the thing with people saying about, and again brought up on your show, I guess, and Steve's show last week with you guys with Rubbing with Racing about Chase Elliott. People always want to say, well, he's in good equipment. Well, yes, that's part of it, but he's also a good driver, and he also, as I brought up, has Bill Elliott as his dad, which it shouldn't be a negative. I mean, people want to point to it as, well, that's why he was given the ride. Well, that alone, I don't think so. If he was a person, no, I'm just saying that because some of the fans might think that, and I've seen that voiced, that the only reason he got in Jeff Gordon's 24 was because of his father being Bill Elliott. That was said back in February, I think, at Daytona, or before the season even started. But and I was like saying at the time, well, wait and see. Wait and see what happens. And, of course, that first race, he ends up, Chase Elliott, that is, finishing in the top 4, I believe. And he's basically gone on from there and been competitive. Again, off the top of my head, with the whole season now, the whole regular season being complete, I don't remember a race where Chase Elliott was uncompetitive. But then again, you take into consideration not only that he is the son of Bill Elliott, but also that he's in Hendrick equipment. So he's obviously going to fare better. And I think, I've never been on the Casey Kane bandwagon, but I think it points up even more the case of, okay, Casey Kane is in also Hendrick equipment, but I think it points up the fact that Chase is probably a better driver than Casey Kane. And then also, because you put those two elements together, or three, counting the pit crew, and there's also the element of when you have a team with 4 cars, the 24, the 48, the 5, and whatever the 4th car was for a long time. Well, the 5 was the 4th car for a long time, even when Mark Martin drove it. I can't think of the 4th car now, but it was at least 3 cars.
Yeah, because you had the 25 with Vickers and Casey Mears drove that car.
Right, also. That Brian Vickers drove. But there was talk about the 4 cars and how much effort is put in to those tail end cars, even though they're Hendrick cars. And then you look at what I've always said, and I've defended, again, not Casey as a driver, but repeatedly said that the last time I can remember as a follower of NASCAR, the last time I can remember Casey Kane being competitive was when he was with Ray Everham. So that was a case of where he was with another owner that at the time maybe wasn't in the same, held in the same regard maybe as Hendrick or Gibbs, but at that time was competitive with Ray. And, you know, Ray at the time also, before that, or even after, I'm not sure if it was before or after that he was Jeff Gordon's crew chief as well, but also he had his own team. And that's when I remember, no, it was after, I'm sorry, because he left Jeff Gordon and formed his own team. But that was the time I can remember Casey being somewhat competitive. Not that he won as often as, you know, the other teams, but that he was at least competitive when he was teamed up with Jamie or with Jeremy Mayfield. And so that goes back some, but I don't see those other, the 5-car, you know, historically being competitive. I think the last driver that won with the 5, any kind of a race other than Casey once in a while was Mark Martin. He's been retired now for at least, 2 years? So, but that's the downside of having, yes, you can be a powerful team and have 4 cars or 3 cars, and you look at it, and again, what's the difference between Hendrick with 4 cars and 3 cars than Gibbs with 4 cars and 3 cars? Well, obviously, Gibbs is able to put equal time, shall we say, I guess, or equal resources into all 3 to 4 cars, where Hendrick, not a knock necessarily on the owner, but I don't know, that they didn't pay as much of attention to that last car, you know, and maybe the answer for them would have been to cut a car out and run just, if it was 4, run 3, if it was 3, run 2. Maybe they bit off more than they could chew. I don't know. Or maybe they need a better driver. And then we've also said, CJ, on your show a couple of times about Richard Petty. Why doesn't Richard Petty Racing, with Richard Petty's background, etc., why isn't he able to spot or get more drivers? And what struck me when you were mentioning, and go back to Hendrick, I guess, early on, I forget whether it was at the 7 o'clock hour on your show, where you were talking about Alex Bowman. The reason people were talking about Alex Bowman is he's driving the 88 for Dale Jr. I don't think they weren't talking about Alex Bowman, and this is something I know because I followed him as well, because of Tommy Baldwin. They weren't talking about Alex Bowman when he was driving the 7 for Tommy Baldwin Racing. You know, they're talking about him now because he's driving the 88. So, I mean, it's all about being, and this is nothing new in sports, it's all about being at the right place at the right time, too. And so, you know, I don't know exactly what the answer is. All I know is that there are cars out there that are competitive and with good owners, and yet there are, you know, there's just it's I guess it's just the way things are. You know, there are always going to be weaker cars, regardless, and you have to put. I think it shows the importance of putting equipment together and having the driver and the pit crew. There's at least 3 elements to a winning organization, and those 3 are the driver, the equipment, and the pit crew. Because, like we've said many times, CJ, the money is going to be the same. There's not one driver or one owner out there that's not a millionaire. That's why he owns the team. Okay, so it's not money. It's not money in and of itself. I mean, if you go into their bank account, they're all making basically the same money. But the 3 things that change are the driver, the equipment, and how it's prepared, and the pit crew, how well it meshes into the whole process. And, that's what I see. And race to race, that can change depending on the circumstances. But this year, if you look at somebody now I can say after, and not just after the last race, but I think you would at least semi-agree with me that if it wasn't Kyle Busch or Kyle Larson, the 2 Kyles that were making noise or news other than Junior, who's always going to make news, it's probably Martin Truex this year with his 3 wins. The one that you went to, Darlington, and now this. And I mentioned on Rubbing with Racing, or Rubbing, I wouldn't say with, Rubbing is Racing, that I'm really impressed after not only just watching last week, but the season as a whole, if you say from the Xfinity Series, Eric Jones moving to Furniture Row, and that's going to be an interesting team to watch next year, not just because of Mile High Radio, well, that's part of it, but also because of the 2 teams and the drivers they tabbed for each car. I think that's going to be rather impressive or rather interesting to watch, at least in the beginning, to see how those 2 teams, as far as within the same ownership, yes, but those 2 groups mesh and work together in 2017.
Couple other, I want to switch gears because I came across a couple interesting things here. One, Danny Woodhead is out. Breaking news, torn ACL. Also, Adrian Peterson, torn meniscus. How do you say that?
Meniscus.
Yeah. He is done as well. Leaked out. A couple of interesting things that I've come across. Aaron Rodgers and Blaine Gabbert, the last 8 games, completion percentage, Aaron Rodgers 58.6, Blaine Gabbert at 61.2. Passing yards, Aaron Rodgers 1,751, while Blaine Gabbert has 1,995. Touchdown to interception ratio, 11-6 for Aaron Rodgers, 10-7 for Blaine Gabbert, with a quarterback rating of a 79.6 for Aaron Rodgers, Blaine Gabbert an 82.8. Who would have thought that Blaine Gabbert, the guy that kind of got laughed out of Jacksonville, won the starting role at San Francisco, doesn't really have a supporting cast there, has actually outperformed Aaron Rodgers in the last 8 games. I don't think anybody saw that coming. Also, another interesting thing, Cody Kessler is who the Browns are going to be starting this week. He was the 93rd pick in this year's draft. Prescott was 135th. The New England Patriots starting quarterback this week was the 91st pick. Wentz. Carson Wentz, the Philadelphia Eagles, was the 2nd pick. But poor Jared Goff, the number 1 pick, picked by the LA Rams, is yet to play. Thought that was rather interesting as well, and to know that we've had anywhere from the number 2 to the number 135th pick that has got to see playing time, while the number 1 draft pick overall is still sitting on the bench waiting for his opportunity. And then one more bit of information, and I'm going to let you take actually 2 more bits of information, then I'm going to let you comment on what you want to comment on. Former NFL player claims he was better. Well, I'm going to take that back. He was at his best after smoking a little weed. You know, that kid in high school who says he does everything better when he's stoned, even if he only does better while high is eating a bag of Doritos. Evan Brinton just might have been that kid. The former Jacksonville Jaguar and Chicago Bears offensive lineman told the New York Post that he not only smoked weed, well, they use the word marijuana. I don't feel right saying marijuana. Not only did he smoke weed before games during his 6-year NFL career, but he might have even played better while baked. NFL games I played stoned were some of the best games I ever played. Cannabis cements your surroundings, he told the paper. A lot of people say they're useless when they smoke weed, but hell, I played NFL games while stoned, dude. My performance was solid, and I felt really good after. Thought that was very interesting. And also for the 10 Tebow fans out there, Tebow jersey's already for sale on his first day of Mets camp. Yes, Tebow mania has begun.
Yes, and it's going to be interesting, and I'll lead with that, CJ, because I'm a Met fan as well. And when I saw that that's who he signed with, I said, oh, boy, New York. And that's going to be interesting. That would be like, and I mean, he couldn't handle Cleveland. Johnny Manziel couldn't handle Cleveland. And you're going to drop Tim Tebow in New York. Okay, well, Tebow is not the same, you know. Tebow has a head on his shoulders at least. But you would think that, and again, you know, he's been on ESPN, and so I guess he's used to the spotlight a little bit. But you would think if you're testing yourself, maybe he doesn't feel it's a test for him in baseball, that you would want to do it not in a place like New York to start. But that's going to be interesting, and of course the jerseys, everybody's going to jump on, not me, mind you, but everybody's going to jump on the Tebow jersey, and that's, maybe you saw something there too, more than just being a player. Maybe you saw, or a baseball player, maybe you saw the opportunity to sign and then, you know, have the jerseys become a positive for him. Although I'm not sure at this point, and I think I've tried to touch on it and see about it, how much, you know, I don't know the players union or what, how much of the jersey sales they you know, but either in football or even in basketball, any of those jerseys. And I think that was an issue at one time too, how much the players benefit when their name is used in a situation like that with the jerseys. But it's going to be interesting to say the least. I guess I'm a little bit surprised, you know, growing up in New York and being a Met fan, that he chose to do it, you know, in New York right at the beginning. And without, again, the only thing I can think of is he doesn't see it as the rest of us do, as an experiment. I think he thinks that, you know, he's going to be successful right up, apparently right from the jump. Otherwise, why would you choose New York as a place to start, you know? That was a little bit surprising to me. The marijuana, the weed issue, I've heard there are players that have lobbied to have weed, marijuana, whatever you want to say, as part of the injury, when there's an injury. But I certainly haven't heard anyone admit to being stoned when they're playing, while they're playing, during the game. If they do, and if I've heard it at times in the past, it only comes out for obvious reasons after they're retired. So that's, again, for you to have read that and use the term or have it written like former, that also is not a surprise, because I wouldn't think that a player would come out, even if he does partake while he's playing. I wouldn't expect a player to come out and verbalize it while he is an active player. Again, I've seen a few things from players that were former, and them have stated that yes, it would have been frowned upon if I had done it even after an injury while I was playing. So I just never mentioned it, or I'm mentioning it now because I'm out of the league, or these guys that write books or whatever the case may be. But it doesn't surprise me when it comes out when they're former players.
I don't know, I just thought it was interesting to see somebody not only admit to, it makes you wonder how, the only thing he ever got tested positive, he got a 4-game suspension, he got busted for having Ritalin in his system. But to hear somebody openly admit that they smoked weed and got stoned before games makes you wonder how these people even catch anybody doing anything, because he's openly admitting that, yes, I smoked weed, I got high before games. But to hear somebody openly... Not now. I had it earlier. So to hear somebody openly admit it and say that they played high, because I know a lot of people that, they're not really worth a darn once they're high. And I just couldn't imagine, somebody being physical and playing at that level and being high at the same time.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. The body has to have a tremendous tolerance for it, for them to be able to play. And I guess it speaks to how habitual it was for him. I mean, if based just on what you said, if you were able to perform even a reduced level in the National Football League or in sports, I mean, drugs are an unfortunate, part of society, if you want to say that, and also, so players shouldn't be immune to it. It's just like, for instance, Lawrence Taylor. I don't think everybody knew that Lawrence Taylor had a problem, but I don't think it really came out that he played on after taking drugs while he played. Even as I recall, even Bill Parcells said that there were a couple of times he showed up in the locker room and was asked to leave, and that's when they tried to do, and this was when Parcells was coaching the Giants, they tried to put him into, rehab and help him that way. And, of course, Lawrence had his problems and fell back, similar to people like Dwight Gooden and, Darryl Strawberry, who also happen to be New York athletes, which, but it's an issue all over. But you don't hear it stated that often that, active players. I don't think they would be that dumb, even if they did it. Okay, I don't think they would be that dumb to admit it while they were an active player. I think you would have to be tested for it. But then again, you're right. What's the testing protocol if you don't catch these people? You know, what are they testing for? So, you know, that's similar to the baseball too, with, you know, Alex Rodriguez and those people, players of that ilk. You know, what good was the test when they would, and basically when they would tell you when they were being tested? If it was mandated in the collective bargaining agreement, and you knew that, say, once a month you were going to be tested, these guys that do this as a habit, or do this most often, say, know how long it takes to leave their respective systems and could beat the test that way. So, you know, I agree with what you said. It's just maybe it's foolish to even test them. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, and yet you have to. You know, I don't know. I don't know what you have athletes get caught at anything. You know, and I don't really know what the answer is and how you go about that, because they had alleged. You know, as I understand it, when this first became an issue back when, they had to legislate it through the collective bargaining agreement, and yet doing that, the athletes knew exactly when and how they were going to be tested. So to me, you could always beat the test with that knowledge. You know, with that knowledge alone, you could, you know, stop for the given period where you're going to be tested, have it, you know, out of your system, and then, you know, not have to worry about it till the next test. And that's, you know, that's what a lot of these guys did, apparently. That beat the test, and again, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, there are guys that are banned when they, you know, again, I don't know what it takes to be banned, how many times, but I think that was even legislated at one time, wasn't it, CJ? 3 times and you're out, 4, 5, whatever it was. I don't know, but it's interesting that the guy tries to say that he played better stoned than when he wasn't, and my question to him would be, how would you know if you're admitting you played under the influence all the time? Did you ever play not when you weren't under the influence? And did you compare your results? You know, did you compare especially in football, when you have the grading system, okay? And I think you read this was an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
So that in itself, the offensive linemen specifically are graded on blocks and everything else. My question to him, based on what you read, would be, how do you know that you play better when you're stoned? Did you ever play not stoned? And when you got the grade for that particular week, did you grade out higher stoned versus sober? Then, you know, and at least could you make it? Then you could make a comparison. If you're admitting that you didn't play, you know, sober, and you always played under the influence, then how would you know? You know, how would you know that you played better?
Well, one update and one breaking news here on the 110 Nation Sports Show. Update, Philadelphia and Chicago are going into the half. Philadelphia is up 9-7. So not only, and they just kicked the field goal, it was 7-6. So not only am I not getting the Chicago lead that I'm needing, but I'm also not nowhere close to the 42 points that I need for Chicago to the total combined score to be at the final as well. hopefully the second half, the quarterback, the Chicago Bears come out and get to be productive and put up a bunch of points. Jay Cutler and Carson Wentz pretty much equal. Both Wentz thrown for 141 yards, Cutler 145. Neither one of them has thrown a touchdown or an interception. And how even the run game is pretty equal as well. This has been more of a defensive game as the top two rushers for Chicago ran for a total of 8 yards, while the top two rushers from Philadelphia ran for a total of 18 yards. The only difference is Langford of Chicago does have a touchdown, but pretty equal and really not much of a running game at all for either team. The breaking news, the Cleveland Browns are going to be signing Charlie Whitehurst. I don't know what Cleveland's obsession is of I don't know what their obsession is signing journeymen and quarterbacks that nobody else really wants or really holds no value. But I don't know if this was just a quick Band-Aid and that's all they could find in short notice. And a quarterback that's been around many systems and they know that can adapt really quickly. But once again, Cleveland settles for another journeyman that is going to probably be equivalent to probably 0 wins.
There's a name from the past, CJ. As I'm trying to think, Charlie Whitehurst. Let's see, Miami, Pittsburgh. I think he was in Cleveland before, believe it or not.
I don't think he was in Cleveland. No, he was in Indianapolis, and I know that he was in Seattle at one point too.
Okay, that might be yeah. I know from the AFC East he was in Miami because he played the Jets a couple of times. Pittsburgh. My recollection is he goes all the way back to the Houston Oilers at the end of the Oilers, believe it or not. He's been around a long.
Let's go with San Diego, then Seattle,
yes,
back to San Diego, Tennessee, Indianapolis, and now with the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, well, Tennessee. That when it first became Tennessee, he was also with the Houston Oilers. That's how it became the Tennessee Titans. So yes, he's been around. I mean, I remember him when I was a youngin'. So yeah, he's been around a while. Here again, not a knock, but it's just strange to me. I guess I would hope that's the only person available. I guess that's why they did it. Strange move, though. The other quarterback you mentioned that's a bit of a surprise, and again, this all goes back to guys in the scouting department, CJ, a lot of these football teams too. Jared Goff, you would think that they would give him at least a shot. You know, considering they gave him or they drafted him number 1, and you have to assume gave him first round or first draft money. You know, did they draft him number 1 to sit on the bench? I don't think so. When you draft, there's a difference between drafting a guy out of college and letting him mature and drafting a guy number 1 out of college. Now, if you pick this guy number 1, I would think you're going to groom him as your starter. And that's another thing that's a surprise. Not that he's even, if he played, let's say, 2 games alongside Carson Wentz. When I say alongside, even 2 games like Carson Wentz, and came out on the short end of the stick, you'd say, okay, he had 2 bad games. Carson Wentz is, picking things up faster. That would be a different matter. But to have him sitting on the bench and have yet, as you say, get the opportunity to play and been drafted number one. That's even more of a head scratcher to me. That you wouldn't even place him and try him, then why did you draft him number one? Just doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense on the face of it. And I'm sure, again, you're looking at the LA Rams, who were the St. Louis Rams. I'm sure you have many other needs as a football team. If you weren't planning to play him start him, that you could have gone in a number of different directions with your number one pick. You're not talking about the Super Bowl champions who might just draft, last and just pick up a need and, maybe work on their depth maybe and have another player that you could pick up. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the LA St. Louis Rams, which they could have used that number one pick, in my view, for a lot of different positive things rather than sitting, it's one thing to sit your quarterback. It's another thing to sit your drafted number one, first pick of the draft quarterback. And that's the head scratcher.
One more topic, and this just got published about 16 minutes ago, so this is pretty fresh off the presses, and I'm sure you've probably not heard about this, and this will give us something to lead into tomorrow as well. This was written by Bob Pockris, which we've actually had him on the show. He's a really good guy to have on the show. It's been a few years, probably about 3 years ago since we've had him on the show. Over at ESPN is where this piece is published. NASCAR accused of racial discrimination in $500 million lawsuit. A Georgia man has filed a $500 million race discrimination lawsuit against NASCAR and its race teams, claiming his attempt to make NASCAR more racially diverse were rebuffed by the sanctioning body. Terrence Cox III, who operated Diversity Motorsports Racing and who funded a group to protest what are viewed as injustice of NASCAR by sponsors and team owners toward the minority community, filed the lawsuit Friday in the U.S. District Court in New York. Cox claims that NASCAR racetrack operator International Speedway Corp. And its race teams have not made any effort to have corporate sponsors support an African-American team. The lack of corporate sponsors is an almost insurmountable obstacle to the integration of NASCAR, according to the lawsuit. According to the complaint, Cox's potential sponsors were encouraged by NASCAR to not work with him, but instead associate themselves with Dale Jr. and Tony Stewart. It also refused to promote various programs Cox created to help make NASCAR more diverse. The lawsuit stated and that his efforts to work with NASCAR Drive for Diversity program were ignored. Cox claims that NASCAR and its teams have engaged in unlawful, intentional racial discrimination by refusing to sanction African-American-owned racing teams and by refusing to hire African-American drivers for its racing teams. I'm sorry, what is Bubba Wallace again? Darrell Wallace, isn't he African-American? And let's not go and mention what Kyle Larson's nationality is and Marcus Ambrose's nationality was, right. And Amarillo nationality is. So let's not even say that this is just all white sport. Anyway, in a statement, NASCAR defended its Drive for Diversity program, which has been in place since 2004. NASCAR embraces all individuals interested and involved in our sport, whether as partners, fans, competitors, or employees. There is no merit to this lawsuit. The statement said NASCAR has a long-standing history of investing in diversity efforts, including the NASCAR Drive for Diversity, Diversity Internship, and NASCAR Diversity Pit Crew Development programs. We stand behind our actions and will not let a publicly seeking legal action deter us from our mission. NASCAR not only will defend our organization against these meritless allegations, but we will be asserting our own claims against Mr. Cox for his defamatory actions, or however you pronounce that word. I know the word.
Yeah.
Cox also is founder of the Minority Youth Matters movement, whose website lists his mission as to enlighten the American public, the corporate sponsors, NASCAR teams, and the owners of proportion of sponsorship dollars dedicated to minority NASCAR teams, employment, educational programs, and opportunities to race in all series. It has issued a news release about possible protests at NASCAR events and tweets often alleging racism in NASCAR. We established these diversity programs to create opportunities for women and minority and race people of all backgrounds within the industry. NASCAR said in the statement, diversity both on and off the track continues to be a top priority for NASCAR and its stakeholders. NASCAR has one full-time African-American driver in 3 national series, Roush Fenway driver Darrell Wallace, who competes in the Xfinity Series. Its national series team owner includes JTG Daugherty Racing co-owner Brad Daugherty, of course, is African-American as well, and ESPN basketball analyst, Xfinity Series team owner Victor Ibaka. Not going to go into the details of this tonight. That was what was just released about now at this point, 21 minutes ago. This is something that we'll be able to lead off with to tomorrow. Gives us an opportunity to look into this a little bit more. Just thought it was interesting, especially that we do have the drive for diversity, especially since we do have multiple drivers from multiple racial backgrounds. I just thought this was interesting. And Mike, I know you'll be on top of this. Let them know once again, Friday night, what time, where to be, and to find you.
Yes, 8 to 10. We hope that you're tuned in. I will have a couple of champions from last week, and obviously they are division champions. Some of them may come back on. We had a couple already trying to get the late model winner who hasn't been on as yet. Again, Sean Solomito won the modified division. He won't be on this week again because the Whalen Modified Tour is still running. I want to have him in the off season. We'll try and get him. But guys like Kenny Hyde are out there. Kenny was on once with me already. And a couple, I'll try to get a couple that haven't been on as yet. CJ, a couple of people also that have been on. And an interesting thing, he won the New England Truck Series, or he's leading the New England Truck Series. I think they have a few more to go. Roger Turbish and Roger won the Riverhead Super Pro Truck Division as well. So he's done really well this year. A lot of the guys, proudly for us, that have come on Hot Laps with Stats on Friday night have done exceedingly well this year. So we're hoping to keep that streak alive in the future. But again, I will have a few champions from the divisions this Friday night, and again, a couple of interesting situations where I put feelers out for support staff as well, PR people, announcers, etc. If not this week, then in the following weeks as well. But join us on Friday, and I'm going to try and put together as diverse, if you want to talk about diversity, as diverse a program as I can get together, and we'll talk some racing again on Friday night.
Also, another topic we'll be jumping into tomorrow, Seattle Seahawks fined $400,000 and will lose draft picks in 2017. We'll talk about that for violating off-season rules. We'll be talking about that as well tomorrow. Make sure you guys tune in Monday through Wednesday. The 110 Nation Sports Show kicks off at 8 o'clock. We have, I know we got Izzo at 9:30. I can't remember which day we have Gus Dean. Gus Dean will be joining us here in the studio one of these days. Tomorrow
I think Wednesday. I have to look. I think that's Wednesday night. Might be Wednesday. Or either obviously in tomorrow, Wednesday. But Miss Lee sent me something on that, but that was the only one that was pre-booked from last week. So.
Yeah. So we got Gus Dean on Wednesday at 9 o'clock, and then we'll be finishing up the show with Shannon joining us at 9:30. Don't forget, you can check us out on Twitter at 110 Nation. You can check me out at CJ Sports 1. Check us out on Facebook, my personal fan page, Mr. CJ Sports, the 110 Nation fan page, 110 Nation Sports. Also check out our site, www.the110nationsports.com for all the latest going on here at the 110 Nation. Got to thank Fit for Life, Snafu Seasoning, I-95 Sports Network, Mile High Radio Network, for everything to do to help continue to make this possible and to help continue to make us grow. The fans for tuning in, the listeners for tuning in. You got to thank every last one of y'all. Tomorrow night, back here, 9 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Do not be late. Talk to you guys then. You guys have a good one.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to the 110 Nation Sports Show with Mr. CJ Sports. You are a part of the 110 Nation, so be sure to visit the110nation.com for everything related to the show. You can follow CJ on Twitter at 110 Nation and on Facebook at 110 Nation Sports. Until next time.
Progressive presents Mindflowness with Flo.
Before you lies a beautiful meadow. In that meadow, Progressive Direct has placed its auto insurance rates alongside those of top competitors. You select the lowest rate and feel a great sense of calm. A great sense of...
Compare Progressive Direct rates with top competitors' rates so you can rest easy. Visit Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Go ahead, get weird with your workout, like whacking tires with a sledgehammer weird. Like riding a stationary bike in a pool weird. Like running a race with a bunch of zombies chasing you weird. Apparently that's a thing. Get weird with your workout, but not with your protein. Always recover smart with organic fuel from Organic Valley. 26 grams of organic protein and 0 weird ingredients. Get your fuel on at drinkorganicfuel.com.